So for today, we're working on multiplication story problems. The essential question, what tools, strategies, and models can I use to multiply multi-digit numbers? I know that doesn't sound new at all, does it? Because we've been talking about that for like 2 weeks on. So your goal for today, I can use a variety of strategies and models to multiply multi-digit numbers and recognize the most efficient ways to multiply. So all of us are a little bit different, right? We think a little bit differently. Each of us are going to have a little different way that we prefer to work out problems. Some of us, I've told you guys before, some of us are more visual, like I've got to see what I'm doing and I need to do it myself. Somebody talking about it, like I'm doing with you right now, is not the best way for me to learn. I have to actually be working through it. So when we're talking about these different strategies and models, you need to be able to recognize them, but you will latch on to your favorite ways to do problems. And most of the time, you'll get to do those ways. So what do you think you're looking at right here? Dun, dun, dun. So we've got some word problems that we're going to work through today. And Maggie's chicken coop. So we got a chicken coop right here, right? I want you to think for a second. How big do you think the floor of that chicken coop looks? What do you think? Like how deep do you think that is? It's hard to tell. How many people think maybe 2 feet in width? Raise your hand. How many people think that's probably 3 feet in width? Okay. I would imagine it's probably between the two. What about how long do you think this is? Raise your hand if you think that it is 10 feet long. Raise your hand if you think that it's maybe 3 feet long. What about those of you? Is there anyone that thinks it's probably in between? I'd say it's about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet. Got another one here, different kind of chicken coop, still a chicken coop. So look at the surface area of the ground right there. It's their floor, of course, but look at that surface area there. How much do you think that would be? We'd need the dimensions to know for sure, right? It's probably, looks to me like about 2 feet wide. And my guess, total guess, is that it would be about 6 feet long. So if it's 2 feet wide and 6 feet long, what would be the surface area of their floor right there, the ground? What do you think? Everybody? So 6 by 2 would be 12. And it's not just 12, it's 12 what? 12 square feet. All right. So we're going to practice working out word problems. There's some things that you need to do every time you have a word problem. First thing is you want to read it through probably at least twice before you even ever get started. You want to make sure that you understand what it's talking about. Think through what they're describing. So it says Maggie's chickens live in a coop in her backyard. The coop is 12 feet by 13 feet. What is the area of the coop? Okay, so think about the chicken coops we were talking about before that I showed you a couple pictures of. And this one that we're describing is 12 feet by 13 feet. And when you're doing a word problem, you want to find the question mark. Make sure you notice how many question marks there are. There's one here. That is what you have to answer in the end. So the first question, what's the problem asking us to do? What do we have to find out? We need to find out the area of the coop, don't we? So that's our first thing to do. The second thing you need to do, is find a reasonable estimate. What is a reasonable estimate as the answer for this one? Got an estimate? Write it down. Now let's talk about some ideas. So I came up with some different estimates here and why they might be reasonable. They are not the only answers. I just wanted to give some ideas. So did anyone estimate 100 square feet? If you did, that is very reasonable because 10 times 10 is kind of close to 12 times 13. They're both close to 10. Did anyone estimate 144? So the reason 144 would make sense is because 12 times 12 is 144, and 13 is really close to 12. What about 130? Did anyone pick 130 as their estimate? So the reason I could see someone saying 130, since we're multiplying 12 times 13, 12 is really close to 10. So 10 times 13 would give us 130. So that's a good estimate. Remember, this is just a ballpark guess, but it's an educated guess. Did anyone write down 120? So 120, 12 times 10 would give us 120. 13 is not too far from 10. Another possibility might have been 150 because 13 is close to 15 and 12 is close to 10. So you'd just be going down and up 2 on each of them. So that would have been a decent estimate too. There's other answers that would be good answers for your estimate. All right, so now to work on the answer here, I want you to go to your notebook. So I want you, with your notebook, I want you to write today's date. In your notebook, I want you to write today's date. And Maggie's chickens is a good enough heading for what we're doing. A ratio table is how we're going to solve it for 12 by 13, 12 times 13. So go ahead and write that below your date and heading. So we worked with these last week. And for this one, of course, it's always just a simple T-chart. So for this side, number of 12s, and for this side, total. So one set of 12s, of course, is 12. Now, we're trying to find out how much 13 set of 12s would be. So let's go ahead and jump ahead. And let's go to 10 sets of 12. So I'm multiplying by 10 to get from 1 to 10. I'm going to have to multiply by 10 to get from 12 to the total for 10 sets of 12. So remember from last week, if we're multiplying 10 times more, that would be 120. Okay, so we're getting closer. We're trying to get to 13. We've made it to 10. So let's go one more. So 11 groups of 12 would be 120 plus another group of 12. So we know that the 0 and the 2, we've got 2. Here we have one more, would be 3. And we didn't regroup at all. All right, so we're getting closer. So now what about 12 groups of 12? We add another group of 12 there. And we end up with 144. 12 times 12 gives us 144. So now we only need one more group of 12. So 144 plus 12 gives us our answer. So the 4 plus 2 gives us 6. 4 plus 1 gives us 5, and we have 156. So this is our answer then. So we can come back up here now and say 12 times 13 equals 156. And remember the problem that we're working with, we're saying that it's 156 square feet for that chicken coop. So now let's go back over. So go back to your Google Slides assignment, and we've got 156 square feet as our answer. Now, the last thing you want to do is go back and look at your estimate. Was this reasonable? So if we had said, if our estimate was 50, that would not be reasonable because that's a 100 off. We should have had at least 100 to be really reasonable, but remember what I've said before, our goal is just to get better each time, to get a little bit closer each time. All right, problem number 2. So Maggie is getting several more chickens. She built a new coop for her backyard for the new chickens. This coop is 6 feet by 26 feet. What is the area of the new coop? So first thing, what is the problem asking us to do? There's only one question mark. It's asking us to find the area of the new coop, right? So did you come up with an estimate? So I've come up with some estimates. If I can get your attention back to the lesson. 120 is one estimate. Notice I didn't give very many. Now where I got 120, we've got 6 here, and 26 is pretty close to 20. So 6 times 20 would be 120. What's 26 also close to? It's close to 30. So 180 would also be a good estimate. If you think about money, it's also close to 25. So you could think about quarters. It takes 4 quarters for $1. That'd be 2 extra quarters, so 150, like $1.50, would also be a good estimate. So now let's go back to our notebook. To solve this one, we're going to solve it a different way. Okay, so in your notebook, this time we're going to use a quick sketch. So go ahead and write that in. And the problem we're solving, of course, is 6 times 26. So remember, a quick sketch can look a couple different ways. It can be where we are drawing the tens out and we are drawing the units as circles. I'm just going to make it so that we've got our units kind of like an open array. So I'm going to put 6 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm multiplying by 26. So I've got 1 10, another 10, and then 6 little ones. Go ahead and get that down. If you ever wonder why I do so much of the graphics rather than drawing it all, yeah, this is why. So let's move this out so we can see it all. Remember, the first thing would be to sketch out the skeleton, the outside, And then you want to draw in the boxes on the inside. I should have said you want to add the dimensions before you draw the boxes on the inside. So here, remember we're multiplying length times width. So 6 times 10, which gives us 60. This is still 6, and this happens to still be 10. 6 times 10 is still 60, and this is still 6, but the top here is 6. Now we can count by our sixes. Remember the cheerleader song? Oh, I think that I found a way to count by 6. You guys finish? 36. So then we want to take our partial products and add them up. So over here we've got 60, 60, and 36. Add those together. Got it? So 6 times 26 is 156. And of course, we're talking about area again, so it is squared units, and we know that the units are feet. So switching back over to Maggie's chickens. So our answer then is 156 square feet. All right, problem number 3, a little different. Switching gears a little bit. We're not talking about chickens this time. And I guess you can figure out what we are going to talk about. So number 3 says, Maggie's pig just had a litter of piglets. Maggie's mother built a pen for the piglets. The pen is 16 feet by 12 feet. What is the area of the pen? So again, find the question marks. There's 1. What is the problem asking us to do? It's asking us to find the area of the pen. Now think about what that means you're going to have to be doing. That means you're going to need the dimensions so that you can multiply 16 by 12. So write down what your estimate is. What do you think? And remember, you could do 2 numbers, like a low number and a high number. Got it? You could have thought of this as 10 and 10. It's a little bit more than that, but you could have. You could also think of this as 16 times 10, 15 times 10, 12 times 12, be more than that. So 144 is 12 times 12. 100 would be if you thought of 16 as 10 and 12 as 10. Maybe you thought of 16 as being 20 because it's close to 20, and 20 times 10, because that way you'd be going up a little with the 16, down a little with the 12. So it's going to be close to these numbers. So look and see, is your estimate near some of these numbers? If they're in the thousands, then we need to work a little bit more on getting closer to what we should expect with these 2 numbers. All right, so now let's go back to our notebook to solve this another way. For this one, I want to solve it with using distributive property, which just an easier way to put that is break apart, where we're going to take apart one of the numbers. So we're familiar with working with 12, so we're going to leave the 12 alone. We could break it apart. It wouldn't be any big deal if we wanted to do that. I'm just going to keep it simple and just break apart the 16. So 16 times 12 equals. Remember, equals means is the same value as. So what's over here has to be the same value as what we have here. So I'm going to break the 16 into 10 10 times plus, what would 10 plus what would give us 16? Be 6. And I'm going to leave the 12 alone. So here comes the 12. So 10 and 6 came from our 16. All right, put the equal sign below and let's simplify. 10 times 12, we've already done that, is 120. 6 times 12, we've done this also, is 72. So one is 120 plus 72. Let's write it down. 120 over 72, and just check. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 plus 7 is 9. 192 is our answer. And of course, we're talking about 192 square feet. So let's go back into the problems and throw in our answer. 152 or 192, square feet. So then look at your estimate. Was your estimate reasonable? Hopefully you're getting closer every time. Let's look at our last problem for today. Together at least. Number 4. As the piglets grow, they will need more space. Maggie's dad is building another pen for half of the pigs. This pen is 24 feet by 8 feet. What is the area of the pen? So find your question mark. That tells us what you're having to figure out. What is the area of the pen? We know that the measurements are 24 by 8. So what is the problem asking us to do? It's asking us to find the area of the pen. And then come up with your estimate. Think about this. 24 is close to 20, and 8 is close to 10. That may help you. Did you write it down? So here are some ideas. So if we went with 20 by 8, that's like 2 times 8, which is 16. 20 times 8 then would be 160. 200, because you could think of money, 24 is really close to 25, like 25 cents. And if we multiply 25 by 8, 4 quarters gives you $1, so this would be $2, so that's 200. So that would also be a good estimate. You could have also looked at this as being just 24 by 10, and that would give you 240. So now let's go back to our notebook and let's work this one out. So for this one, last one together, we're going to do doubling. So we've got 24 times 8. We can do this a couple different ways, just like everything else. We could split the 24 in half and do 12 times 8 and then double that. We can also do 24 times 4 and double that. So I'm going to go for this one. I'm going to go with splitting this in half. So 24 times 8 is the same thing as 2 times, and the 2 is because we have to double it. So I'm going to split this one in half and get 12 times 8. Now this would be the same thing as if I had 12 times 8 plus 12 times 8 instead of the 2. So 12 times 8 we know is 70, what? Not 70? 80? 96. So we've got 2 times 96. So over here, Let's just add it. 96 plus 96. 6 plus 6 gives us 12. We regroup. That 1 with the 9 gives us 10. 10 plus 9 gives us 19. Oh, wow. So we have 192. So before we go back to put this answer in, I want you to look back at our answers so far. We had 156. For our first two problems, we had 156 and 156. They're the same answer. Do you notice anything about the numbers? Do you see any patterns? Look specifically at the 12 to 6 and 13 to 26. We'll be dealing with this pattern later in the week. What happens to 12 to get to 6? It gets split in half, doesn't it? 13 plus 13 gives us 26. So it looks like they split one of the numbers in half and they doubled the other number and they got the same answer. Just interesting. Just keep that in the back of your mind for later on in the week. And then let's look at these two. So on this one we had 192 and on this one we had 192. See if you see anything between these numbers. Anything? So they're not in the same order, but 12 doubled gives us 24. 16 cut in half gives us 8. So that's doing the same thing. Just store that in the back of your brain for a little bit later in the week. All right, so go ahead and plug in that answer, 192 square feet, and then look back at your estimate. Hopefully every time you get just a little bit closer with your estimates to the actual answer. Now, those of you who off to the side go ahead and figure out the problem before you make an estimate, that is not what I'm asking you to do. You need to just ballpark it off the top of your head. What do you think the answer might be? Not scribble off to the side and figure out what the answer really is. I want you to actually be able to make a guess. In real life, we make guesses all the time. We don't always just stop and figure out the answer. Okay, so I want you to think, what were some of the different strategies we used today? We used a ratio table. We made a quick sketch. We broke apart some numbers. And we used doubling. Which one do you like the best?